Now, because we're going to cut this out using the router and a trammel, really we've got to find some way of holding it very carefully. And so from the same stock that this piece of wood was cut from, I've made these two end blocks. And I used the same domino settings in order to make the domino slots which have been used and into which I've now set these dominoes. Those are glued in just so they don't go anywhere. And now I can push that in there and that in there quite simply. I did sand the ends of those dominoes off to make that transition quite easy. Now, I don't want to ruin the ruin, he says, looking at the top of his MFT3. It's pretty scarred already. I don't want to create any further damage to the top of my MFT3, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this on a sacrificial piece of MDF, which I've got here. Now, in order to hold this in place, and also so that I can then reverse it for doing the other side, I've made up a simple little profile like this. It's got 4 holes, and I can use, it only needs 2 at a time really, just to locate this. And it's set up such that the centre line here is through the centre line of these holes. So that means I can set my trammel up so it's registering on a Parf dog on one of these holes, and then I'll be central to this. My next job is actually to screw this onto there, screwing into my blocks at the end. Right, this is the setup. I've got my piece of wood. It's held in place by the clamping bits at the end, which are then screwed onto this piece of sacrificial MDF, which has got the accurate holes drilled in it. And through those holes and into the MFT3 top, I've put a pair of these Veritas bench dogs, which are associated with the Parf dogs. There's one there and there's one there. I put clamps here just to be doubly safe to make sure it's held in place. I've then got a trammel, which is a piece of wood which happens to be the right thickness here, so that it allows this to be level as it goes over the top of the wood. I've attached to it with a pair of screws my trammel, and this is adjustable. If I undo these screws, you can see that I can now move this to and fro as required. I've got it in that position for now. So I've got my adjustable trammel. I've set the router up with one of the UJK 30mm guide bushes in, and this is the Lee adapter plate here, which you'll have seen in one of my other videos. I've got an 8mm cutter, and I'm all ready to go. Right, there we are. Those are done. They just need some sanding. I got a little bit of a burn mark here when I was a bit too enthusiastic, but that will come out with sanding, so I'm not worried about that. And of course, we've got the domino joints already done, and they're at the correct angle. Now the beauty of this method is not just its accuracy, and you saw how I was able to flip those pieces over and do the other side, and it was beautifully accurate, and that's thanks to the accuracy of those holes on the MFT3. But just supposing that you had a more complicated shape for these backrest parts, and they were shaped like this, and you still had to do that cutting out there. So using the technique I've just shown you, you could do complicated compound curves as well. And I'm going to put this piece of MDF into my collection, because I'm sure I'll find a way to use it again. I thought it might be nice to have a decorative edge at the top of these rails at the top of the chair. Right, the glue up strategy is very simple. I'm using this arrangement on the MFT3 so that I can get things lined up and square. Now, because this rear leg here is curved, and if I put a clamp on there, it would bend, I've got a little piece of wood here which is cut to the right size, slips down in there, so I can now put a clamp across there when I need to do it. I've got in this joint here, I'm going to use some mitered dominoes. So it's just been cut at 45 degrees and that's going to go in and that will then meet up with the domino that's coming from this direction. So I've put that first one safely out of the way. I'm now going to do the second. And it's the same process, except I've reversed this piece so that we can get it justified to this end. Now I've moved it away from our square here so that I can just put these two clamps on just to squeeze the excess glue out, which I'm doing now. I'll then take the clamps off and check it against here, and then we'll be done. Well, those are the two sides done, and they're a perfect match. And now all I've got to do is to put the intermediate pieces in, which is going to be very, very easy indeed. Well, there are two things our chair still needs. One is a coat of Osmo Poly-X, of course, but the other is a seat. There are two options. One is you could have a padded seat on here. Now, in order to do that, you would put some of these little 45-degree pieces in like so, which would support a piece of plywood or something like that. Then you put a bit of foam on that and cover that with fabric. The other way, which to be honest I prefer, is to do something like this, which you see on this chair, which I made a long time ago. Now, making the seat part is really simple. I've cut a whole bunch of strips of walnut, because I want a contrast, and they're 10 millimeters thick. And I've got some small offcuts which I've created, which are all uniform in size, and I've glued those in to form this sort of grid arrangement. Now, because of the exact size of the space where this has to fit, the outer two pieces are actually 12 millimeters thick, and I'll plane those just a tiny fraction to get that to fit in the space. And I had this gluing up overnight, and I had to make sure that it was all nicely square, so I set up the arrangement here on the MFT3 as you've seen before. That kept this side square. I've got a piece of wood here which I put in because otherwise my little pieces at this end were going to fall down through some of the holes on the MFT3. And I have this piece of wood here which helped to bring everything together and square at this end. And that's that. And you can now see that that's going to be, I think, quite a reasonable little open lattice seat arrangement. I've got the Parf dog set up for this cut, a little bit of extra support there for the guide rail. I've got the depth of the saw set correctly. I'm just going to do a very small trim off that edge there. Now that seemed dustier than normal because I was literally just taking a very, very small skim off there. And of course, normally the dust collection relies on there being a piece of wood on this side to seal the joint, as it were, as the saw moves across. Now I've put some supports all the way around on the inside here at an appropriate height that then leaves this flush with the surface. And I've also had to do a little cutout here and here to make sure it fits in at the very back. At the front, I had to relieve the inner corner of the front two legs. That then allows this to drop down in place like so. And just a quick sand of these edges, just to turn them over. And that's it, and just one little light sand across the tops here where I scratched it a little bit, and then we can do the Poly-X. Well, that's it, the chair's finished. I've only put one quick coat of Osmo Poly-X, that's the 3011, the gloss. I'll put another coat on tomorrow. Now, the whole idea of this project was to demonstrate just how easy it is to make furniture, particularly something like this chair, using the brilliant Festool Domino DF 500. I've had mine for about 4 years. It's transformed my woodwork. I absolutely love it. There we go, one new chair. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye. Now remember, I provide all of my plans free of charge, but all I need from you is an email address to which I can send those plans. So please send that to me by private message. And that's dead easy to do in YouTube. All you do is click on the New Bit Workshop, wherever you might see it, then click on the About tab, and then Send Message, and you'll find me.